From the desk of Black Media IPTV, we present a shocking discovery when, in March 2026, a long-standing partnership came to an abrupt end. Jamaica's foreign ministry announced it was ending a medical agreement with Cuba. This deal had been in place for nearly 5 decades. It brought hundreds of Cuban medical professionals to the island nation. More than 400 Cuban doctors, nurses, technicians worked in Jamaica. The official reason was a failure to agree on new terms. Both governments were unable to agree on the terms and conditions of a new technical cooperation arrangement. The previous agreement had ended a year earlier, in February 2023. In regional relations, the announcement sent ripples across the Caribbean. A year earlier, Jamaica's foreign minister praised the program and noted its importance to Jamaica's healthcare system. Cuba responded swiftly and began recalling its medical personnel. The withdrawal involved over 270 health workers. The departure left a void in Jamaica's public health infrastructure, especially in underserved areas. The decision came amid intense pressure from the United States. For years, Washington has campaigned against Cuba's medical missions. U.S. officials condemned the program publicly and engaged in private diplomacy. The pressure campaign included: the primary public justification for U.S. pressure is a human rights claim. American officials have repeatedly framed Cuba's medical missions as a form of modern slavery. They argue that the doctors and nurses are victims of forced labor, human trafficking. This argument centers on the working conditions and payment structures of the program. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been a vocal critic. He has described the program as basically human trafficking. This strong language has been a cornerstone of the U.S. public relations campaign against the missions. According to the U.S. State Department, the Cuban government exploits its medical workers. It alleges that host governments make large payments directly to Havana. The Cuban state then reportedly keeps the vast majority of these funds. The doctors themselves receive only a small fraction of their earned wages. The U.S. also claims that the Cuban government imposes coercive conditions on the workers. These include restricting their movement while they are abroad. Officials say their passports are often confiscated to prevent them from defecting or leaving their posts. These allegations have been used to build a moral case against the program. At a press conference in Kingston, Jamaica, Rubio detailed these claims. He said, "The doctors are not paid. Payments are made to the Cuban government." Beyond the human rights argument lies a powerful economic motive. The export of professional services, primarily medical, has become one of Cuba's most important industries. The revenue generated from these missions surpasses that of many traditional sectors, including tourism. This income is critical for the Cuban government. It uses the funds to pay for essential imports like food, fuel, medicine. The U.S. strategy aims to sever this economic lifeline. This effort is part of a broader maximum pressure campaign against Cuba. By disrupting the medical missions, Washington can inflict significant financial pain on Havana. When a country like Jamaica, Honduras cancels its agreement, it directly reduces the flow of hard currency to the Cuban state. This economic strangulation is intended to limit the government's ability to function. It is a key component of a decades-long policy aimed at forcing political change in Cuba. The United States has employed a range of diplomatic tools to achieve its goals. These tools can be divided into 2 categories: punitive measures or sticks. The most prominent stick has been the threat of visa restrictions. In February 2026, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced an expansion of visa bans. These restrictions target foreign government officials who are involved in facilitating Cuba's medical missions. This action puts direct personal pressure on decision-makers in countries that partner with Cuba. The threat of losing access to the United States is a powerful motivator. Many government officials in the Caribbean have personal ties to the United States. Many government officials in the Caribbean have educational ties to the United States. Many government officials in the Caribbean have financial ties to the United States. The prospect of having their visas revoked is a serious concern. Last year, U.S. officials met with Caribbean leaders to deliver this warning directly. The message was that continued participation in the Cuban programs would have consequences. This tactic is designed to make cooperation with Cuba politically costly. This tactic is designed to make cooperation with Cuba personally costly, pushing them to align with U.S. policy. Alongside these threats, the United States has offered incentives. The State Department has developed a strategy to help countries transition away from Cuban medical assistance. A memo from February 2026 detailed these offers. Despite the intense U.S. pressure, the policy has not been universally accepted in the Caribbean. Many regional leaders have pushed back, defending their right to partner with Cuba. They argue that the medical missions are essential for their public health systems. Cuban doctors and nurses often serve in remote, rural, impoverished communities. These are areas where locally trained doctors are often unwilling to work. For these leaders, the Cuban presence is not a political statement, but a practical solution to a chronic shortage of healthcare professionals. The response to the U.S. threat of visa restrictions was defiant in some quarters. When faced with the prospect of losing their U.S. visas last year, some leaders stood firm. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines publicly stated they would gladly give up their visas. They refuse to abandon a program they see as vital for the health and well-being of their citizens. Their stance highlighted the difficult position small nations find themselves in, caught between a powerful neighbor. The immediate consequence of ending these agreements is a direct impact on healthcare access. When Cuba recalls its medical brigades, it leaves a sudden and significant gap in the host country's health system. On March 11, 2026, Cuba began pulling over 270 medical workers from Jamaica. This rapid withdrawal has profound effects, especially in rural areas. Many clinics in these regions, which had relied entirely on Cuban staff, were left without any doctors at all. This creates a serious challenge for patients seeking basic medical care. The situation has become so dire that it has drawn international attention. The United Nations has described the potential outcome in Jamaica as a humanitarian crisis. The sudden loss of hundreds of healthcare workers threatens to overwhelm the already strained local system. Patients may face the recent decision by Jamaica to end its 50-year medical agreement with Cuba is the result of a deliberate and sustained U.S. campaign. While officials cite failed negotiations, the context reveals a clear strategy from Washington. The real motive is a three-pronged effort to undermine the Cuban government. Prong 1. A public moral argument. It labels the medical missions human trafficking and forced labor. That framing creates moral pressure on partner countries. Secretary Marco Rubio's repeated rhetoric has driven this perception. That moral narrative provides ethical cover for the policy. Second, the economic objective. Cut off vital revenue for Cuba. Medical missions are a key source of hard currency for Havana. Convincing countries to cancel contracts directly hits Cuba's finances. Recent cancellations by Honduras and Jamaica have tightened the squeeze. Finally, diplomatic tools, threats, and incentives. The U.S. has used visa restrictions as a stick against foreign officials. It has also offered financial and technical assistance as a carrot. That dual approach makes it hard for small Caribbean nations to resist.